Hey, welcome back to Nifty Notions. I'm Andrew.
I'm Jason.
And today Jason is going to introduce us to an interesting topic.
Yes, Andrew, I've got something here for you I think would interest you as an engineer. And I'm going to start by asking you the question and give you a bit of context. What solution did the British government come up with to provide enough stretchers for wounded civilians in World War II? That's the question.
I have no idea, but did it involve massive deforestation?
Well, for the war, of course, there was a lot of things, a lot of scarce resources used for things. But what happened was there was a department of the British government called the Air Raid Precautions Department. And they were tasked before Britain got into the war about saying, how do we look after Londoners and people in England if there's an attack on England. So it was all about precautions, it's about, do we have the Dad's Army thing there, et cetera, and they decided they needed over 500,000 stretchers.
Right.
Just because they didn't know what was going to happen. They were, we'd probably be attacked, they thought, by the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force. Yeah. And they said, well, we need 500,000 plus. In fact, in the end, they made 600,000. So they had an ingenious thing to actually devise these stretchers.
And that was?
Well, first of all, they thought if civilians are wounded, having canvas and stuff is not going to be sufficient because we might need to reuse the stretchers. And having blood and other stuff on the canvas is not good. So they needed to come up with something which is easy to clean and sanitize, etc. So, and with the war going on and the ammunition being built, all the metal was being used for that production. So they were looking around going, well, what's the material we can use? And they came up with an ingenious thing. And I'll just give you a chance. Do you want to hazard a guess, or?
Do I get a hint?
It is made of steel, the stretchers.
Steel.
A durable material that you can hose down and sanitize for further use.
So is what, reuse of something existing?
Yes, something which is not...
I mean, you'd normally think that steel during the war would be used for munitions and tanks. And
right, and that's it, isn't it? It's going to be all pushed towards the war.
So
this had to exist already.
I have no idea, but I think, okay, it's a reuse of something.
Well, you're along the right lines. So what London and England had at the time was a lot of estates, right, flats and things, and the flats had gardens, and surrounding them was a fence. And typically the fence was made of steel, and it had one pole going around at the top, mesh, and one pole going around at the bottom. So normally painted black in England, and so you've got one steel thing going around, whatever shape the estate was in, a bottom one, and mesh in the middle. So someone in the British government said, if we remove the steel railings, right, and cut them into stretcher-sized things, we've got two poles on each end, and we've got mesh in the middle, of which we can put civilians, and it can be cleaned. So they started cutting these portions out of the railings. And
there would have been a lot of upset people.
A lot of people.
Where'd my fence go?
And they produced 600,000 of these. 600,000 of these stretchers.
That's a lot of upset people.
A lot of estates where you can just walk on now.
Right. And well, if they had zoos on these estates, the rich people with lions and elephants and stuff.
What country are you from? A very exotic country. So they also then put kinks in the rails, for the legs as you put stretchers down. Yeah. So obviously it's easy to pick up and things. So they used it during the war. There's 600,000 of them.
So this is like cyclone mesh or like a wire mesh.
Yes, those kind of square-like objects you see.
The interleaved stuff. Yeah, wow, that's clever.
Very unpretty, but very, very...
Uncomfortable.
But I think when you're wounded, it's the least of your worries.
Yeah.
So they used those and they hosed them down, they disinfected them, they could reuse them and stuff. So the war goes on, right? And as you know, the Luftwaffe do have night raids and day raids in London, particularly night raids. A lot of wounded happen. They use these particular stretchers. So the end of the war comes, 1945. So what do you think happened to these steel?
Did they put them back, put the fences back, and say sorry with a little note saying just sorry for the inconvenience?
But you're absolutely right. They put them back.
Oh, okay.
They didn't melt them down. They didn't discard them. No. They put them back where they found them. So today, you can walk around London and you can see these railings. And the reason why you know they're called stretcher railings is because they've got the kinks still from when they were stretchers being set down. And they're still there. And you can see them. It's quite incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't find that in any American city, would you?
No, you wouldn't. So that's just a little bit of a tidbit about how innovative.
Yes, I mean that's the thing about. I mean, as an engineer, you've got to be innovative and you've got to come up with solutions when you don't always have the optimum things at your disposal to be able to get there. You just have to be inventive.
Incredible.
So that's good. That's clever. A clever use of.
A very clever use and a reuse back to what they were.
With the promise, with a little thank you notes.
Thank you note. We're saying only we might need them again in case of war.
Only used on Sundays.
Yeah, that's right. So that's a little bit about the British government in the 1930s.
Well, it was nice and short and sweet. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And if you've enjoyed that, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe. And don't forget to share this with your friends. If you've got any comments to make about this, if you think Jason's completely wrong, or you don't like the colour of my shirt, put them in the comments. My name's Andrew.
I'm Jason.
See you later.